Welcome to the Games Revealed channel. I'm James, and today we're going to be going over the Steam Deck options for storage, part 2-ish. It's also just an addendum to the last video I did and correcting some wrongs, and then including some additional information to make up for those wrongs. So I definitely will be going over the three options like I did last time. And I will also be at the very end giving the things that you should definitely look out for and not do like I've done. And so make sure to watch the whole video and get that extra nugget of information at the end, or just skip to the end and get that extra information that you definitely don't want to do this dealing with storage with your Steam Deck. Okay, so I also want to wish you a happy Steam Deck release day. It's released today. It might not be in your hands, like most of us, and it might not be in your hands in a couple of days, like most of us, but I would like to congratulate anyone that's getting it in the next few days that was able to wake up and purchase their version. Congratulations. And if you're one of them, let me know in the comments. I'm excited for you, and I hope to see a lot of interesting content coming from everyone. So let's do some corrections first. First and foremost, the NVMe stuff, I kind of got wrong. I mean, the size I got definitely wrong. So if you went out and bought anything, I'm hoping you didn't. Hopefully you're in the window to return it. But the M.2 NVMe drives are not compatible with 2280, which is quite a bit bigger. And I don't know why I said 2280. I do know the difference. It's compatible with 2230, which is much smaller, and can be found in like the Microsoft Surface Pro 7 and 8, I believe. It's an upgrade option in the back, and they're much smaller NVMe drives. Also, it only supports up to 1 terabyte. Technically, there are newer versions coming out this year that are going to support up to 2 terabytes, but only supports up to 1 right now that you can buy. With that correction out of the way, let's go into the SD cards, which is my favorite option. It's the one I recommend to everyone for doing storage, especially in the beginning, as we're figuring this whole thing out. More information is going to come out in the next few days on this. So I don't know if this will age well. We'll see how well this ages. But from what I've gleaned from review or overviews, reveals and stuff like that, like it sure sounds like the SD card is going to be a good option. First off, let's go into the different formats that are supported. The SD, SDXC, and the SDHC are what's supported, those types of cards. What I typically see is the SDXC inside on the drives, and so the memory sticks. So yeah, keep that in mind. As long as you're keeping in a realm of like searching for Steam Deck compatible cards, there's a lot of information out there, or you can just use one of my links below. They are affiliate links, so I do get a cutback. You do help the channel, and so you can go either way. I've researched these quite a bit. I know that these cards will work, but it all depends on which one you want to choose. Is up to your preference. Kind of. One of them is better than the other ones, but it's not the one I recommend. Okay, so also, before I go into these three cards, I want to just talk about dual booting. And also just running your operating system off the SD card. You can do that. So you could swap out multiple operating systems, which is so interesting that you could do something like that with this. And it makes sense. It's Linux. You can do that anyways. You can do it with the Raspberry Pi. But the format, the file format of these of the Linux operating system is ext4, compatible with ext3 and below, I believe. But 4 is the latest iteration on that file format. Windows is NTFS, and they're not compatible per se. Linux can run NTFS file formats and other formats that Windows can support, at least as storage. Linux itself, the operating system, cannot run on that. And I'm sure there's going to be some Linux people that are going to say, well, technically, maybe. This it just doesn't. I just wouldn't even go down that route. Just if that's true, comment below. I'm always interested to learn. I've learned a lot already by doing these videos. So the ext4, you can access it on Windows with special with just software you can download. And so if you want to add more games to it from, let's say, an already existing library, you can do that. So there is that route. And then you can also, I would probably, if you're trying to dual boot on your NVMe, and then on your card. I wouldn't recommend doing operating systems off the SD card. It's just, will see some limitations there. I always recommend doing operating systems off NVMe's or your fastest drive. With that being said, I think you're going to do better going with a Windows supported format, like exFAT, NTFS, stuff like that. You're just going to get a little bit more compatibility between the two. I could be wrong. We'll see in the near future. If I am, maybe I'll do a small video on it. So if I need to. Okay. The three different cards I recommend right now, and there's a bunch of other ones. There's a great list at cameramemoryspeed.com on like benchmarks and the different cards that you can see like what all their performance benchmarking, right? And so there are better cards than these. These are mid-range. I like them because they have a good balance for what I look for. And what I look for in an SD card is performance, obviously, but balanced enough. Reads is the most important thing. Writes are important, but when you're playing a game, you're mainly reading the data into RAM, and then you sometimes need to write to the SD card with like save points, or just if you're doing a screenshot, something like that. I definitely wouldn't recommend streaming your videos to the SD card. Well, recording your videos, you know, if you're playing a session, let's say streaming to Twitch, but also recording to the deck, save it to the NVMe if you can. And then just, you're going to have to manage that because that will fill up really quick. Or there's other ways to do it, I'm assuming too. That being said, let's go into these different cards. Lexar Play. It is the one I've been using, like my Switch and stuff. That's why I recommend it, is that I know what it can do. I like it. Other ones have better performance metrics. I just know this one works, and it's got good read speeds. It's got 148 megabytes per second read, and that's tested, meaning someone actually tested it real world. They claim 150, and then 30 megabytes per second write, which is drastically less than the read, right? But like I said, you're not going to be writing as much as you're reading. The IOPS on this are 1900 IOPS read and 658 IOPS write. The SanDisk Extreme is the next one, and it has 160 megabytes read and 90 megabytes write. And I feel like that write is probably lower than what they claim. And then the performance is at 4,000 read IOPS, 2,000 write IOPS. And I believe those are given to us by SanDisk. I always take that with a grain of salt. Like, if it's given by the manufacturers, they have an agenda typically. But what I'll say is, it's a great card, and it's the one I should recommend. I've just had some bad luck with SanDisks in the past, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that love SanDisk, and they're going to say the opposite. They've had a lot of issues with Lexar. I've just had some issues with SanDisks in the past, not this specific one, and I'm probably going to pick up one of these cards so I can test the load speeds and all that, just from a practical standpoint, not just from pure performance metrics that, you know, they use these benchmarking tools. I want real world performance tests, and I plan on doing that for you guys when I get my Steam Deck someday. Okay, the third choice is the Lexar 1066X, and it's got 160 megabytes a second read, 120 megabytes a second write. This is one that I would typically use for like cameras, and it's the one I use for my camera. I need higher write speeds than I need read. Read is actually not that important for me for doing video and stuff like that. But the write is where it's at for this, and it's, to be honest, the metrics aren't like the benchmarks on this in real world are okay. Like, they're not as good as I thought they were, and I was a little disappointed, even though I haven't had any issues recording video with this yet. But it is an option, and technically it's supposed to have higher write speeds. I don't believe in those write speeds, though. I think they're drastically low. Okay, let's get into NVMe. So, with the NVMe options, you have plenty here, but not really. It's a poor joke, I guess. I was going into that, I'm like, yeah, you're going to have so many options because there are a lot of NVMe options, except for when you're thinking of 2230. There's not a lot. There really is not a lot. That being said, the Steam Decks ship with eMMC memory. That's the 64 gig. That's pretty slow. you might want to think about upgrading that if you're brave enough, maybe. But if you're going with the 256 or the 512 gigabyte options, I wouldn't recommend upgrading, not until like the 2 terabytes out and readily available. That's not overpriced and hopefully scalped. That's going to be another issue. Like, we'll see. We're going to see how the market treats the Steam Deck release and when there's an abundance of Steam Decks out there. And yeah, we'll see with that, because there's not a lot of only 230s out there. And the best ones I could find were ones that were for the Microsoft Surface Pro. If you guys found something that's pretty baller, let us know in the comments below, like link to the store, because I'd like to know. I'm probably, like I said, I'm not going to be swapping mine out anytime soon. I am going to try to make the SD cards option work long enough, because I don't want to kill myself by opening up the device. It's a joke. I made the joke last time and people didn't quite get it. It's a Valve joke too. Like, Valve mentioned it, but I believe they were joking too, but also like for legal reasons, they wanted to say that. So if anyone does blow themselves up, it's there. They're like, well, we warned you. I mean, it's not even blowing yourself up. It's the battery could be punctured and explode, harming you, potentially killing you. So I don't think the chances are very likely if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, don't go this route. It is, after watching Linus Tech Tips teardown, getting that battery out is going to be a little bit of a pain. But if you know what you're doing, go for it. And there's going to be iFixit videos and replacement parts and all that stuff. And Valve's done an amazing job supporting this option, even though they don't recommend it. It's still something that you can do. And the reason why they don't recommend it is actually because the cards, like the NVMe drives that they've chosen, are specifically tuned or chosen. I don't know if they do a lot of tuning, but they've chose them because they work well for latency, read write performance, for noise, like not causing a lot of noise electronically to like the Wi-Fi adapter, which could interrupt your Wi-Fi strength, so you could get drastically worse. And then also battery life. It could also getting too high speeds can actually reduce battery speed, or not speed, but battery performance, from my understanding. If I'm wrong on that, comment below. With that being said, go for it if you want to go that route. You're going to get some pretty awesome benefits if you do upgrade. You're going to get read speeds of 2000 megabytes per second and write speeds of 1100 megabytes per second, up to that. Now, that being said, Micron is coming out with a 2 terabyte 223 card, and its read speeds are going to be 4500 megabytes, and its write speeds are going to be 1800 to 4000 megabytes, depending on the size. That's a huge increase, and that's some pretty baller performance. And if you're a PC enthusiast and have the money, I'd say go for it. Good luck finding one. I haven't been able to find one yet when I was looking for this, but good luck. Okay, let's go into the USB external drives real quick. It's definitely the one I least recommend unless you're stationary, or you're going to be like, let's say, laying in bed for a long period and you can just plug in your drive. It just almost defeats the purpose of having a Steam Deck. A lot of storage is awesome, but I think people forget how much a 2 terabyte SD card will go. Like, it will go pretty far. It will get you, depending on what type of games, let's say on average a game is 20 gigabytes. You're going to be able to fit so many games onto that card. It's not going to matter. Like, you can't play all those games at once. You could go on a very long trip and still not play all those games, finish all those games. So what I'd recommend is getting multiple cards, swapping them in and out whenever you want, or you can offload them and then load new games from your PC or where, or if it's just your only device, then multiple SD cards. It's the best option. But if you want to go with the external, you can get up to a 5 terabyte with a Western Digital My Passport. Not amazing performance, by the way. Really is technically worse than in the SD card, from my understanding. But the SanDisk Extreme V2 portable SSD is an NVMe drive, I believe, built into an enclosure. It's all inclusive. So everything, it comes all together. And you get read or write speeds of about 1000 megabytes per second. And you do have options from like 500 gigabytes to 4 terabytes. It is going to be more expensive, but the prices actually didn't seem too bad on that. That being said, you can also just buy yourself an external an external drive enclosure that you can then put in your own NVMe. And if you go with the 2230 and you don't want to like open up the device right away, you could just get a 2230, slap it in there, and then plug it in and use it from an external standpoint for a little while, and then put it in. You're just gonna have dongles hanging off. Like, why do you want a dongle? Why do you want like a cord hanging out of your device that's supposed to be portable? Don't know. So I don't recommend going this route, but if you really want to, or if you're gonna make a stationary setup, which I do plan on going that route, and I have external drives, meaning I could dock my my Steam Deck over here and then use it as my main PC if I wanted, and have my external drive into it, but get a USB external for your docks and your dongles, where you're going to be stationary with it, like let's say at a TV also. Great place. That's a great place to put them. On the go, definitely not. And as your main storage for your games, I just wouldn't recommend it. You're going to want those to be on the go typically. So that being said, maybe I'll go into some dongle hell in the near future on a video. But let's go into those mistakes that I mentioned earlier in the video. So first up, do not get the wrong NVMe. If you're going to be upgrading your NVMe, you can already tell that like sometimes the numbers can get a little confusing, or they just get read wrong. I read it wrong. The 2230 is the size you want to get, not 2280. The 2280 looks very attractive because that's mainly what you're going to find when you're searching. It's drastically smaller. I'm going to have images for that of the different sizes. Don't get a cheap SD card. They'll fail a lot faster. You're going to have poor read speeds. And once you get to a low enough state, then you're just going to have a miserable time, I think, loading games, but we'll see. We will see. I'm curious what the difference in load times really are in like a real world situation between 100 megabytes per second and 150. The card I recommend is the one I've been using in the Switch, and it's been working great so far with their bigger games, their smaller games. I've liked it a lot. But just don't cheap out on that SD card. You just don't want it to fail. SD cards can fail, and they fail often. At least for me, they have, especially the cheap ones. I've gone away from trying to even go near cheap SD cards. It's always nice to have a deal. I just don't recommend it. And then external hard drives. If you're trying to be portable, don't get a power adapter style external hard drive. So an external hard drive that also has a power adapter that needs to be plugged into the wall to power it. You get more speed from that, but if you're on the go, you have to find a plug for that. And that just brings up a whole other set of issues that you just don't want to deal with. So if you're buying an external drive and you want it to be portable, stay away from the power adapter ones. You're just not going to have as good of a time. And then the last mistake you just don't want to make is wait too long to get your storage. Don't wait until you get your device and then get your storage. There could be some supply issues, and you might end up with a very small SD card. I've seen the SD cards go in and out on like the 512s and 1 terabytes. I think they're all in stock right now. And with the Steam Deck, I think there's not going to be a large release. They're going to be doing there's so many people that want the Steam Deck, but I think they can only manufacture so many right now. And there are manufacturing supply chain issues and all that stuff. So I would recommend playing it safe and getting 1 or 2 cards right now. I have 2 512 gigabyte cards because I plan on swapping them and having, single player on one and then multiplayer / videos, who knows, on the other one. That's what my plan is. Maybe one day I'll get a 1 terabyte. I might get some other cards to test and just see what the best experiences on the Steam Deck is. But yes, don't wait. Okay, that being said, we're done with this video. Let me know in the comments below what storage options you're going to go with. Yes, this is very similar to another video I made. I'm just went deeper into everything, and I wanted to make those corrections, and then a part of those corrections go into the details just that much more. Let me know in the comments below. And then also just check out one of my other Steam Deck videos in the recommended at the end of this, or you can try some of my other videos. I do have a Steam Deck games related one where it's my top 10 games, so check that out. Okay, later guys. Later.